We've been locked in our classroom for days, and our teacher is starting to act very strange. Day 1. We had just opened our textbooks to chapter 8 when the alarms blared overhead. A red storming light spun by the door as metal slats slid down the hall to seal us in. The others started to stare and panic at their desks. Not class. I'm sure everything is fine. Probably just a drill. Mr. Jones held up his hands in an attempt to soothe the crowd. Just as he was about to open his mouth, Eve came on the intercom. Level 3 contingency located in the south quadrant of the campus. Lockdown protocol is now in effect. Isolation protocol is not in effect. Oh no. The teacher suddenly looked pale and a little panicked himself. Day 3. I slid my rook across the tile chessboard to overtake Patricia's bishop. She stuck her tongue in defiance as I removed it from the board. I smirked and then shoved another sucking crack in my mouth. Mr. Jones said we shouldn't be here any much longer. It was probably taking just the CDC a while to quarantine and eradicate the contagion. He said it must be a pretty nasty virus if they're keeping us locked in our classrooms. We have enough snacks from the day, so it's been difficult to ration properly when you all are just candy, and canned spread cheese. Overall, though, we were keeping our hopes up, which was all we could really do. Staying positive for now. Day 5. The room was starting to smell foul. We designated some buckets in a small corner as a bathroom, and they were about half full and then beyond putrid. We ran out of food last night. My stomach rumbled with hunger, but I did my best to ignore it. I didn't feel like playing chess or reading anymore. Instead, I just napped at my desk as much as possible to pass the time. I also bet at any moment I'd be awoken to the doors opening so I could go home. I miss my parents. Mr. Jones was losing composure too. He had been pretty much put together up to this point, ensuring we are all calm, but his eyes looked a little wild now. And he kept pacing the room, talking to himself. A few times I heard him cursing under his breath and then reciting prayers. I really hope he got out here soon. Day 8. Bang, bang, bang. A pounding sound. Bang, bang, bang. I stay still to appear asleep, but my cracked eyes just enough to watch as a biology teacher smashed a chair against the steel door over and over again. Bang, bang, bang. He was really losing it. Let us out of here, Mr. Jones screamed as he tossed the chair to the sword. I cannot do that, sir. Level 3 contagion has been detected. I sealed off the affected area, but you must stay isolated for your safety. The robotic voice hummed over the speakers. He screeched profanities at the camera in the corner of the ceiling. Some of the other boys were becoming aggressive as there, had some more fights in the classroom in the last couple mornings. Also, some hands going where they shouldn't be going. Back behind the fake plants and lab equipment, it seemed as if we were all slowly devolving, becoming an enclosure of chimpanzees like one you'd see at a zoo, but only hungrier. We needed hope, or something was going to be terrible. And we're just waiting to happen. Day 10. We had been on a diet of tap water for the past days. I felt dizzy every time I stood from my desk. The room was spinning and I almost blacked out. I kept footing my sheer force of willpower. I had this irrational fear that if I passed out, I'd be eaten by my classmates, like a pack of hyenas on a gazelle, feasting on my intestines as they spilled across the tiled floor. It sounded crazy if I said it out loud. When I looked around the room, I saw all the hungry faces. I didn't think the idea was too far-fetched. Mr. Jones hasn't said a word in 12 hours. He's just been sitting at his desk, carving something into the surface of it with an X-Acto knife. For the first time today, I had thought that maybe we weren't going to make it out of this. Maybe we were all going to die in this classroom. I hung my head and cried. Day 13. Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, stop. Mishi cried. Don't you see? We have to do this. We need food. It's survival 101. When the pack is suffering and food is simple, scared to turn on the weakest member. It's simple. Biology. Survival of the fittest. Mr. Jones had his hands around Trevor's neck, squeezing so hard that the boy's eyes were about to pop out from the school. Trevor struggled from beneath him, but he was frail and terribly small for his age. Mishi grabbed a large beaker from the table and lifted it over high his head. Mr. Jones, stop now. Don't make me do this. But the teacher was long gone, his eyes gleamed with a delight as drool dripped down his chin from sobbing at the thought of a meal. I jumped to my feet as Mishy brought the beaker as hard as he onto Mr. Jones' head. It shattered to the past on impact, knocking the teacher out cold. Mishy pushed him off Trevor. The poor kid was wheezing and gasping for air as tears streamed down his face. "You're alright. It's okay. You're alright." Mishy patted the kid on the back, trying to calm him as he wailed. Suddenly there was a scream like a war cry. Mr. Jones was airborne. He leaped across his desk and plowed into Mishy. They both went sprawling across the tile. Mishy resisted, but Mr. Jones ended up on the top and began dropping his elbow viciously on Mishy's face, causing blood to sprut from his nose and mouth. Static from my mouth. I didn't think, I only reacted. I reached down and picked up a hunk of glass from the broken beaker and grabbed Mr. Jones' shaggy hair and pulled it back to his neck. I pulled the glass through the meat of his throat as hard as I could. I had never seen so much blood before. It poured a waterfall across Mishy's chest. Mr. Jones fell to the side once more, this time to never get up. I stared at the bloody, soaked hands. I felt nothing. No remorse, no fear, only static. Suddenly, the metal slabs retracted into the ceiling and the door swung open. The lockdown protocol has been lifted. Please continue with your regular schedules. Lockdown protocol has been lifted. Her cherry robotic voice seemed so distant and out of place now. The other students gathered around me, just staring to pull the blood. I think it was the hunger talking, but a part of me wanted to know what it tasted like. I think the others did too. Thankfully, but before that could happen, a man in the suit strolled into the classroom. "Hello, class." His perfect team gleamed under the LEDs. Before we could say anything, a team of adults overalls poured into the room. Some began taking pictures of everything. Others started cleaning up Mr. Jones. One man with gray hair dropped a large box on the teacher's desk and opened it. He then started throwing in fresh fruit and granola bars to each of the students. We devoured everything he gave us. I started to feel more like myself after 2 bananas and 4 granola bars. They tasted like heaven, a sweet salvation. The first man with nice teeth and expressive suit waited until we were all done before he addressed us again. I know it's been a long 13 days, guys. I appreciate you all hanging in there. I've lettered each of your parents that you've been cleared to go home. That classroom erupted in cheers as we all hugged each other. Even Mishy, covered in gore, danced around excitedly. We'll be able to all go home soon, but first, I just need to do a little debrief with each of you before you go. I'm going to sit up in the consular office, and Mr. Moses here is going to bring you down one by one to give me your account of everything that happened during isolation. We all nod our heads in agreement. Anything to get out of here. Mr. Moses, the man with gray hair and the snacks, took us one by one, and we spilled our guts to the man with the nice teeth. When I gave my story on what it was like, I still felt numb. Even when describing how I killed Mr. Jones, I just felt nothing. It wasn't until when I got home that evening, I broke down and wept. Once I was in my mother's arms, and I cried until I couldn't anymore. Then I ate more food than I ever had. I shoveled pasta down my throat until I thought my stomach could burst. It was a good feeling to be full, to be human again. Years later, while I was at university, a whistleblower had leaked out what had endured at the school was a government cover for a top-secret experiment. There had been no virus, no collagen. It begins as an experiment to test the artificial system they had at school. But then it morphed into a social experiment to see how long it would last before someone was murdered or seriously harmed. To assess the boundaries of civility and moral character under immense pressure, just in case there was a real issue with the AI code. This scenario became a reality elsewhere. When I killed Mr. Jones, it had ended the experiment. The news had made me so sick to my stomach. I was angry and disgusted for weeks. I was okay with it though. You see, Trevor may have been small, the weakest member of the Pride, perhaps, but he was also a genius. With his hacking expertise, we were able to locate Mr. Nice Teeth and Mr. Moses. It's been 6 days so far, and every time they scream and hit the door of a chair, I just can't help but smile. It's a little experiment a few of us are conducting. It'll end when someone is murdered or severely injured. Maybe.